Hello everybody, welcome back to BareRose Garage. What are we doing today? Well, I'm sitting down taking a little bit of break before I pull the engine transmission out of this 71 Lincoln Mark III. And while I was taking a break, I thought this would be a good time for a little video and a little bit of story time on the reason this car has got to go. And oh Lord. This car is the car that possessed me. That's right, this is my Ford Demon. Total 100%. And I am not allowed anywhere near one of these big old things. And here's the story why. Back in my early 20s, I don't remember how old I was. I don't know how old I am now, so I'm over 50 now, so long time ago. Let's just leave it at that. I owned one of these 71 Lincoln Mark IIIs. It had the 460 in it with the dove heads. I loved that car. Now, where I live in Idaho, we're kind of in a unique situation, especially back then. We had a Navy base here in right close to my happy little town. I know, sounds really weird, but we actually had a submarine training base out there on the desert out there. Now, the cool thing about living next to a Navy base is you're surrounded by Navy guys. Well, what did Navy guys do? They got lots of money to buy all kinds of cool stuff, but then they get shipped out and they buy big stuff like hot rod cars and cool cars, and then they get shipped out and they can't take it with them, so they sell it on fireside prices. Well, it just happened that I picked up one of these, almost the same car, but it was white on white, had white outside, white leather interior, just a beautiful car with dark tinted windows. Now, the only thing that guy had done to that car is he had truck manifolds put in it. Now, you seen in my little bitty short, and after I pull this engine transmission out, my Holly cat wants to come up here and say hi. I'll just give you a comparison of what Lincoln manifolds look like compared to truck manifolds. Truck manifolds are a lot bigger. So he had that done to it, and then he had a true dual exhaust put under it. Also, he put in, well, it wasn't an Edelbrock, but it was a Carter AFB carburetor on it. A bigger, better carburetor than the Ford Autolite Motorcraft 4100. I don't know. I don't even want to know the number on it. I think it was a 4300. 400 CFM stock carburetor. They took that off and they put a, I don't know what size. It might have been a 750. It might only have been a 650. I don't know. Put a Carter AFB carburetor on it. I was a lot younger then, and it was a long time ago. So I picked that car up as he was shipping out to another base. He sold me that car for $1,200, and I bought it hands down. So that's where my first taste of what these cars came from. Now, when I bought that car, I was working at Flag Ranch, Wyoming. Flag Ranch is it's in Yellowstone National Park. Actually, it's Grand Teton, but why they separate those two parks, I don't know. It's probably so they can charge you more money to go through both parks. They're connected. Anyway, I was on the construction crew that was building Flag Ranch Resort. If you're ever traveling through there and you want a good place to stay, I highly recommend it. I'm a little bit biased because I spent about 2 years up there building that place with Pacific West Construction. I was young and dumb and had a big old Ford hot rod that I could ride up there in luxury. And it's about 2.5 hours from where I live. Well, I was living in Idaho Falls at the time. So, this all plays into the story and why I cannot be anywhere near this car. In fact, I got to be careful touching it because this is the car that possessed me, literally. So, To build on to this story, I got to tell the whole thing, and here we go. Bear with me. Every week, we would go up to the job site early Monday morning. We would leave here about 4:30 in the morning to be able to get up to Flag Ranch and get everything set up and be on the job at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'd stay up there all week in a bunkhouse. To start out with, we were in just camp trailers set up for everybody who worked there. All the carpenters, all the plumbers, all the electricians, everybody that was on the project. You go up there and you spend all week, and then you come back on Friday. Well, it's like I said, it's about a 2.5-2 hour drive depending on traffic going through the park. And then when you come back, you had to be back in Idaho Falls before 5 o'clock on Friday. If you missed it, the office would close. Bang, you're not getting paid. And there was many times when we would have to work over. Whenever we would work over, we would just stay up there all weekend long. We'd pull 14-day weeks. Sometimes we'd be up there for 3 weeks. You get it. You know how construction works. And I loved every minute of it because I was making pretty good money, and that just meant more overtime. Well, this particular time, it was coming up on 4th of July weekend. And it was also the time that they were bringing in all the mud, all the concrete work. Now up there, it's a long ways away from any concrete plant, so when it come time to pour mud, it didn't matter if you were a carpenter, a plumber, a roofer, it didn't matter. Everybody went on concrete work because it cost a lot of money, and especially in all the permits and everything when you're working in a national park. To get that mud up there, it had to travel a long ways, and it was a steady stream of truck, just in and out, in and out. So prior to that, we had to get everything prepped, and a hard push because it was a 4th of July weekend, long weekend. Everything was pushed and pushed and pushed to get this all done for that big old holiday weekend. So we ended up staying up there. I was up there for, oh Lord, that was a 4-week run, a full month that I was up there, working straight through the whole time. And the whole time, I wasn't getting back to get my paychecks. And so I had like 4 checks waiting for me at the office at the end of this run. And we pushed and pushed and pushed hard. Well, on that 4th week, living out in the middle of nowhere, we'd run out of supplies, we run out of everything to live on. And you can only eat convenience store food, living off of Doritos and hopes and dreams. And we were just absolutely 100% dead broke by the time it came around to quitting time to get back to Idaho Falls to get paid. And like I said, my landlord back in Idaho Falls was waiting for his rent money. It came right down to the wire to where the boss man told me to just dump the 2 gas cans full of gas into my car so I'd have enough just to make it back. That's how broke and hungry we were. And so I had 2 other guys in the car with me. I was sitting on the passenger side. Here was Frank. He was my room bunkmate up there. In the back seat was Cameron, and it just so happened he was the boss's son. And we'd stayed up there, shut the job down, secured the job site, and we were running late. And it was on a Friday, just before the 4th of July big weekend, and we had to get back to the office before the office closed and all the banks closed. Otherwise, we were going to spend the whole rest of the weekend dead broke explaining to our landlords why the rent is going to be a little late. Because it would have been a whole nother week, and then hopefully we get off in time on a Friday to make it back into Idaho Falls in time to cash our checks, get our checks and cash them. So that was the situation I was under. Well, after we got everything closed up, it was cutting it right down to the wire. I mean, it was to the time that if we took off right then, I was going to be lucky to catch the secretary as she was locking the door of the office before everything shut down for the weekend, holiday weekend. So I jumped into my big old 71 Lincoln with those few mods on it, and we tore out of there. Now, I knew going through the park headed home, because Yellowstone National Park, it's 35 miles an hour all the way through the park. I knew it was a big, heavy, big holiday weekend, so I knew the park was going to be packed full of tourists. Every wildlife from a chipmunk to, God forbid, should a bear step out, because that causes a traffic jam for miles as people jump out of their cars in the middle of the road and take pictures of the wildlife in Yellowstone. Yellowstone is a wonderful place. I highly recommend everybody coming up and seeing it, but that's what you deal with. And anytime you got to go through the park when you're not vacationing, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. So I took the back road out, little road called Grassy Lakes Road. It's a dirt road that takes you straight into Ashton, Idaho, straight across, instead of going through the south or the west entrances. It's just a windy dirt road that takes you out, and then it drops you out of just south of Ashton. So I jumped in the car and I dirt tracked that big old Lincoln all the way out of there. Now, as you enter into Ashton, Idaho, heading southbound, that's right where Yellowstone Highway opens up into a divided highway. This will all come into sense with this whole video and how this car possessed me. As soon as it opened up into that divided highway, like an interstate, 2 lanes heading south, 2 lanes headed north, divided, you get it. I stuck that car into the passing lane and I threw my foot to the floor, hurrying, trying to make it back in time to catch my paychecks and to get the landlord off my back, get my bills paid, and get ready for the big holiday 4th of July weekend. After that long, hard push working up on the construction of Flag Ranch. And I laid into it. Now it's about, back at this time, that was a 55 mile an hour freeway, or highway, all the way. 55, everywhere was slow on the highways at that time. And freeways. Freeways were 65. This was a highway, it was down to 55 all the way. Well, I laid onto that highway and I just threw my foot down. I was in a hurry to get to where I needed to be, and I was motor scooting. Okay, so these little cars right here, now I gotta explain this to people who don't know these. You hear them called boats. Well, they're called boats for a reason, not just their size. When you get these things up to about, I should start to kick in about 60 mile an hour, yeah, about 60, 65, they start to float, and they do this. Now, knowing now what I didn't know then, I know why they were doing that, because they're a panhard rear end. They got the coil springs in the back, and so with the coil springs, your rear end is free to float like this, side to side. Well, they use a hard link that goes from your frame over to the center of the rear end, and that holds your rear ends parallel with the rest of the car. Works really good, but there is a drawback to the panhard. As the car goes through its motion like this, with that link being on one side, well, as it goes up and down, you can see by my hand, I think there, this gets shorter as it goes up through its arc and down through its arc. Now, low speeds, you don't really notice that much. It's not much of a swagger or a wiggle, but as the speeds increase, you'll get that little bit of waggle, and that'll cause the car to float like a boat as it gets up. Like I said, it starts kicking in about 60, 70 mile an hour. You really start feeling it, and it feels like you're on a boat floating along. As the speed increases, it's doing more of that, so you're really boat floating. Now the story gets good. As I'm cruising down there, I got my foot to the floor and I'm giving that 460 everything it's got. And these cars are heavy. I mean, really heavy. I think they curb weight out at around 6,000 pounds, about 3 tons. That's a lot of steel and a lot of inertia. Newton's law kind of kicks in. Well, as it's going along, I got an angel sitting on my shoulder over here, and I got a devil sitting on this side. And that float is getting pretty good as that old speedometer is coming around, and I'm feeling the front end really lifting up and getting light. So I'm getting a little focused, if you will, because all that air, because you can see, well, this one's kind of hurt, which is a good thing because it'll really force me not to keep this car. It's shaped like well, to put it in layman's terms, this thing's got the aerodynamics of a lead brick, okay? So as I'm pushing through at this, I'm coming up on pretty good speed. 100, 110. It's like pushing a lead brick through a wind tunnel with a sail going. It's driving that air, and you can see the way this front bumper is shaped. See how it's kind of scooped down like that? Well, that's a perfect air dam to lift that car up in the nose, and it's pushing all that air underneath the car, lifting the whole car up. And like I said, the steering was getting a little bit light, and I'm in the passing lane just flying, just the speedometer came up. Well, the speedometer only goes to 120, and I'm just up flying down the road. And then the strangest thing happened, and this is where the story gets good. As I was cruising along, and I'm watching it, out of the peripheral of my vision, I'm watching that speedometer come around, because let's face it, when a speedometer only goes to a certain bit, that's a dare, and a dare that everybody wants to try at least once in their lifetime, right? So I'm kind of focusing on what that speedometer is, and it comes around to 120, and just as she broke over that 120 mark, and there ain't no more, it comes around to the odometer and the little peg that the speedometer rests on when you park it. That speedometer's coming around, and as soon as it broke, this happened. The front end of this car dove over, and it was the freakiest feeling I have ever experienced, and it was also the coolest experience I have ever had in a car. Period. When that nose broke over that barrier, like I said, it was just after 120 mile an hour, probably 120, 125. That nose dove down, and then the air flew over the top of the car. And if you notice on these, they got a Continental kit on the back. It's fake. There is no spare tire in there. It's just a fake design to give it the Continental look. But that trunk lid is like a spoiler, and I think that's what was going on. When that nose broke over and the air started to come across the top of the hood, that car sunk to the ground. It felt like I went from being this high off the ground to that high off the ground. I'm exaggerating, I know, but it felt like that. That car just squatted down, and it sounded like I had another gear. Now this has got a C6 transmission in it. It's only got 3 gears. But as soon as that car sat down and laid down on the pavement, it went from 120 to spinning that speedometer needle all the way around, snapping it up against the stopper because it was coming back around again. It slammed it up against that stopper and just, I thought it was going to break the little peg off of the 0 mark and come back around again. That fast. And it sounded You could hear it in the RPM. I could feel it in the whole car. That camshaft came in good and solid, and I had nothing but power band. And it sounded like I shifted it into overdrive. And it's got no overdrive. It just whoa, and laid down on the ground and shot like a bullet. Now, another thing that happened right at that particular moment, well, that little devil sitting on my shoulder here reached over and punched the angel that was over here, and that poor little angel went flying right out the window and was gone. And that devil was saying, let her eat, let's go, let's go. The whole, this is a phenomenon that we all have. It's basic human survival instinct. I learned later on that the technical term for it is called hypertension focus, hyper-focusing. I forget the technical term. Basically, the whole world goes into slow motion. And some of you have felt that before, I'm sure. It is the strangest feeling. Everything slows down. But when that car broke over that 120 mark, she dropped down, and I felt that awesome, cool feeling. She just shot like a bullet. I don't know how fast I was going, but behind me, I heard a sound. The eeriest, craziest, nasty sound I had ever heard come from another human being. And I looked up in the rearview mirror, and Cameron, my boss's son, who was in the back seat, was sitting in the middle of the back seat. It's kind of a diner seat in the back, very comfortable, but he was sitting in the middle. He had both arms stretched out like this, and he must have been spread eagle back there, and he was going, "Wah!" Just scared to death. And I looked over to the side. Well, I didn't move my head, just the peripheral. My bunkmate, Frank, who was sitting next to me here, he had one hand on the seat here, and he had the other hand up against the door, and he was just grinning ear from ear. And all I heard was, "How fast are we going?" Everything was in slow motion. It was just raw, intense. Oh, like I said, those of you who have been into that situation know what I'm talking about. The bushes in the borrow pit that were going by before that was just a blur. Everything's just a blur going by. But I swear to you, it sounds like I'm making this all up, but I could actually see the leaves on every bush that went by. Everything just slowed down. That's exaggerating, but you get what I mean. Like I said, it's a basic survival phenomenon that all of us have. It comes into play when the world is going too fast or too crazy around you, so your brain will trigger that, and it slows your perspective of things down so you can comprehend what's going on. It's probably what kept us alive all these years. That's how we were able to get away from them saber-tooth tigers and whatever else monsters was out there. Anyway, so that was going on. And we were flat moving. Now, on Yellowstone Highway, coming southbound into Idaho Falls, just as you come through Madison County, because I was covering some real estate, and I was covering it pretty quick. There's an overpass right as you come at the end of Madison County. And right at this overpass, it kind of turns off to the left, and then it comes back to the right. Just a little soft, gentle little section in the road. Well, I could see way up there that there was a truck, like a semi-truck, pulling a trailer that was passing another, I don't know if it was a camp trailer or a motorhome. It was some kind of RV. I went by him so fast, I don't even know what, I don't know if there was a pickup in front of it or if it was a motorhome. But they were coming up alongside of each other. This truck was passing this slower guy here, and I could see him way up there, and he was taking up both lanes under this overpass. So I laid on the brake. I let her down, and I just started to brake. And she was slowing down, but she wasn't slowing down much. So I double-footed on the brake, and I'm bracing up against the steering wheel, slowing this 3 tons of metal going God only knows how fast. Well, Madison County knew how fast, because just as I shot through that underpass, that semi-truck had already passed, and he was already coming in, pulling into the other lane. And I hugged the shoulder just as he was coming in and just flew right by him. But as I flew by, the sheriff was sitting right there on the other side of that underpass. He got me. I knew he'd got me. I remember saying, "Oh crap, guys, we're not going to make it." And meaning we're not going to make it back to the office in time to get paid. Here we go. He got me. I'm sorry, guys. We're not going to make it. I'm still full on the brake, and I just followed that curve out and just let her come to a stop on the side of the road there. She stopped pretty good, but like I said, 3 tons going as fast as I was going. Yeah, it took a little bit to stop. So I'm pulling out my license, got my driver's license out of my wallet, reached over to the jockey box, opened it up, and I'm pulling the insurance out when the cop pulled in behind me. Like I said, he didn't even hit his lights. I just knew he got me, so I pulled over. I pulled myself over. Well, I was thinking speeding ticket. I was really thinking I was just going to get a speeding ticket. Well, he jerked me out of the car and, slapped the bracelets on me, because 146 miles per hour in a 55 under full brake is it's a little more than a speeding ticket, let me just tell you that. That's 30 days in the county hotel and SR22 insurance for the next 2 years, and a big old fine that I had to come up with for Madison County. Anyway, that was all lesson learned, and a public service announcement to all you younger kids out there: don't try that. It's not worth it. Don't do it. And actually, I am a grandpa. I generally drive slow. I'm the guy that everybody passes. I do the speed limit. Very rarely do I even go over the 5-mile marker on the street. I'm a grandpa. I always pretty much have been. Except for this one time, that little devil was sitting on my shoulder. And I gotta be careful. I got goosebumps just sitting next to this car. So, what does that have to do with the car that possessed me? That feeling, I'm not talking about the slow motion part. That feeling though, when that car went from a lead brick bolt to a Ferrari with that mystery overdrive that does not exist anywhere on this car, and the way she just sat down and rocket ship launched, that experience I've never been able to duplicate, and it was one of the neatest things I had ever experienced in a car. And I know I can only experience that again in a 1971 Lincoln Mark III. Because like I said, I think that Continental, that fake Continental kit on the back of this thing had something to do with it, along with the shape of this front end. This big old brick with an air dam swooped in airplane wing bumper. But as soon as that sucker sat down, it went from a lead brick into a true hot rod Lincoln powered Ferrari. And I know I'm exaggerating. But that is the reason I've told myself I will never, ever own another one of these cars. Because enable for me to do that again, which I very much would like to do because it was just the neatest feeling ever, I would have to duplicate everything that I did on that. And I was doing well over 146 when he so kindly showed me with county documentation just how fast I was going in this stupid thing. And even sitting next to this car now, that little devil's on my shoulder saying, come on, come on, come on, let's do it again. That was fun. Come on, nobody will know. Come on, it's fun. Yeah. This car is evil, and I have no right being anywhere near it because I want to do it again. In fact, bringing it around from the backyard, I made cousin Mike steer it while I pulled it with the tractor, because I don't even like sitting in this thing. So that's the story of the car that possessed me, and the reason I can never own another 71 Lincoln Mark III. Any of you guys got a story like that? Put it down in the comment here. Or better yet, if you can leave a comment, you have a YouTube channel. Do a little short video or a long video. I don't know how long this video is going to go. Do a video on it. Tell your story of the car that possessed you. When that little devil on this shoulder reached over and kicked the angel right off your shoulder. I'd love to hear your story, and I would love to see the video on it. Until then, let's get out there and get some metal hot. And we'll all keep these old girls on the road, even if they fully belong in the hands of somebody else. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get the engine transmission pulled out of this one. I've already got the car sold. The rest of the body is leaving me. In fact, I didn't even change my name over onto the title because I want nothing to do with another 71 Lincoln Mark III, even though it is one of my favorite cars. Get out there and get the metal hot. And like I said, put your comment down there of the time that you experienced something like that. Hopefully everything went okay for you too. And the reason why you too were possessed by one of these, go fast. Shut up, I'm not doing it. I gotta go. I gotta get this engine out of here and this car the heck out of my driveway because this son of a bitch right here is telling me to, yeah, I gotta go.